Hey everybody, this is Jose. I'm the author of Criss Cross, if you were not aware. And so today I thought I would get started by showing off all the current stuff in Criss Cross. Now, I'm calling this a dev diary because I'm going to go through and upload new ones as I add new content. That way I don't have to completely start from scratch my tutorial and walk through, but that way you can kind of get an idea. So I guess first of all, I'm in this test world here. I can show you a few of the mod options that you'll find with Criss Cross. You'll find them right here in the in-game mod menu, mod options menu. And I can't modify any of these because I'm currently in the game, but you can see most of my machines have either their own subcategory or they're just in the other machines if it's a simple recipe list. So far though, I will show you some of the more advanced stuff later. But there's some good amount of stuff in Criss Cross, so I thought it would be pretty cool to kind of discuss what its purpose is and what all is going on. So to begin, I guess I should explain the purpose of Criss Cross. Criss Cross right now is meant, well, okay, it started as my first tile entity project, and then turned into sort of a method of holding the sort of, I don't know, it sort of meant to hold you off for the progress of 1.8.9 and 1.8.8 mods that were pending, and tech mods that were pending. They still are pending, so that's why I feel like it's still kind of important to go over what's going on here, because there's a lot of content that I feel like is missing, or that a lot of tech mod players would enjoy to have still. So I guess we should go ahead and get started. So the first item of discussion, I suppose, is the Cropomator. And as you can see, the Cropomator has a nice new texture. All of my machines have new textures. Most of them are thanks to a user on Reddit called Metro Salty, and any of the new-ish textures that he did not make are inspired by his base texture set, so I seriously appreciate the work he did there. Now, one thing I do want to note is almost every single machine has a configuration through the JEI here, as you can see. So here's the full-on recipe list, and I guess this is basically as well as I can explain it to you. And we're also on an outdated version of Criss Cross. I've got a dev build that I'm working on right now that adds animations to the JEI implementation. So if you wanted to see like a little moving progress bar and stuff here, don't worry, I've already added that. So feel free to suggest it, but it's really not necessary. So the way the Cropomator works is you feed it bone meal and a crop of your choice. It is configurable and compatible across any mod, of course. And it'll basically triplicate it for you. It'll give you 2 more than the one you gave it. And so essentially it's going to use up 1 bone meal every time. It's a 1-to-1 consumption ratio here. So if you can find a way to automate the creation of bone meal, then you can essentially automate most farming processes. Or, again, you don't have to put a crop in here. I don't do any checks. If you wanted to make it so that the input was emeralds, you could configure it to do that. That's kind of the idea of Criss Cross. I try to leave everything as openly configurable as possible. So next up in the mod is the ElectroExtractor. The ElectroExtractor is a pretty smart tile entity. It has a configurable fuel list, and I've actually already changed mine here. By default, it chooses redstone blocks to fuel itself off of, but I've changed that to redstone dust, and I think I'm going to change that to be the new default because I feel like redstone blocks in a survival world is actually very expensive. But essentially the way the ElectroExtractor works, and we'll take a look here at dusts, we'll take a look at the recipes, and there's a few test recipes in here that I've been meaning to remove as well, but for the most part it's pretty much done. The ElectroExtractor is sort of your method of ore duplication. So the way it works essentially is you feed it 1 redstone dust and 1 of your ore that you're looking for, and it will crush it down into 2 of the dust that you're looking for, and automatically registers the dust for smelting. So the way it works for the configuration file is you tell it the name that you want to the ore dictionary name that you want to add. So for example, if it is cobalt, the ore dictionary name is ore cobalt. So, and I might change this. I feel like it might be a little bit confusing this way. In order to add it to my configuration, you take out the word ore and you only put in the word cobalt. So you follow that with the colon, and then you do the number that you want as the color. So the color is a overlay using just your standard decimal point values, which is why it is a weird long number. So you'll find on the internet and in my configuration file, I give you website links to it. You'll find a color picker or color picker, which will give you the hex color, and then you'll take that hex color and convert it to decimal and paste that in. I hope I've got that right and not mixing up decimal and hex. But you basically can just choose whatever color you want this to be, and it will go ahead and add it for you. So the names are also, everything I do here have localizations that could be changed. So if you speak another language, feel free to make custom localization files for Criss Cross. It'll work. I think the GUI is also localized, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure it is. But even the names of these dusts, they're randomly, or not randomly, they're dynamically generated per dust, and they are localized, or using the localized name. So, not to worry there. And you can see there's a few, like I said, sample recipes. I was working here to see if I could get a stack size sensitive output, and it's not quite done yet, but I might work on that some more later. So if we just take a look, the processing time on all of my machines is configurable except for the scribe. The scribe is the only exception because I feel like it's one of those machines whose influence in the game is strong enough that you shouldn't be able to make it quicker. But you'll see as you go through here and process it that you'll get your dust, and you can take that dust and smelt it. And if you run into a configuration issue, what the reason for that would generally be, and it'll tell you in the output logs, it's usually because either the OR dictionary item does not exist, or, optionally, the OR dictionary block exists, but the output ingot doesn't. I check, the reason I do cobalt instead of OR cobalt is because I take cobalt, and in my code I search for OR cobalt for the block, and ingot cobalt for the ingot. And if I can't find either one of those two, then I throw an error for you. You don't crash, you just let you know, hey, we didn't add this recipe. Removing an OR from the ElectroExtractor list is pretty messy. I don't suggest it, but you kind of can if you need to. But just expect your dust to be kind of messed up for a little while if you had any dust laying around already. Otherwise, you'll be okay. So the next thing is the wood chipper, and it goes alongside the Everfull bucket. And the Everfull bucket here is pretty difficult to craft. It's two buckets, two water buckets, an empty bucket, and some diamonds. And essentially, its purpose is as an infinite water source. I'm working on making this a infinite water fluid container as well for forge, so that you can, for example, fill up a tank infinitely with this. But essentially, the way this works, I'll show you here. There are 3 default fuels for the wood chipper, and the wood chipper goes through and dynamically grabs OR dictionary logs. So you don't even have, there's no configuring for inputs here, it just grabs the logs for you. And as you can see, the recipe here calls for either water, in bucket, bottle, or Everfull form, and that is configurable as well, so no big deal there. But I'll just show you here. If we give it a water bottle, it's going to go through and process. This process takes just a little while, but when you're done here, it's going to give you 6 of the plank instead of just 4. Essentially, it's one of those things that you can just kind of work on later down the road. If you feel like automating it, it's really easy to do. All of my machines have default I-sided inventories that, rather, standard I-sided inventories, so they don't I-side, or they're not I-sided like IC2 machines, for example. They're I-sided like a vanilla furnace. So what that means, and I'll show you here, is that the side is for fuel, as you can see. The bottom is for output, and the top is for input. So we can do another log. We'll just do jungle wood this time. We'll do input, and there you go. So this is, in general, how this is set up for I-sided configuration. So if you're looking to automate it, now you know. This is going to be how all of my machines, except for the scribe, are automated. Scribe doesn't have I-sided interfacing because, well, quite frankly, it doesn't need it. And you'll see all the output goes out the bottom. So I did it just because while it is kind of a pseudo tech-ish mod, not really even a tech mod, I did feel like it would be good to keep with the vanilla mechanics there. So that is the wood chipper. Followed by that, we have the cobblestone and smoothstone generator, and I've got a few things that I'll show you with it. So the cobblestone and smoothstone generators are exactly what they sound like. You'll see they've got inventory slots for water and lava buckets, and the cobblestone generator, you can just give it a normal water bucket, and it just runs as long as it's got the water bucket there. I'm probably going to change the way this works out, and I'm needing to work on some interface things here, but other than that, for the most part, it's pretty much done. The stone generator, on the other hand, will consume your water bucket, not if it is ever full though. So essentially, if you want infinite smoothstone and infinite wood chipping, you should make 2 everfull buckets in your world. Hopefully that's not too expensive for your taste. And I'm going to see if there's a way for me to implement the new bucket model from Forge as well. That'd be kind of nice. So, next up, one of my newer things that has not been covered at all is the scribe. And the scribe, I hate to admit, I have to actually look at the recipes for, because I can never remember all the recipes. I also need to add the... There we go. So the scribe is item stack size specific, and you'll see it has recipes for, essentially, you take a book and quill, you take your potion and or your item or whatever your input item is. This is completely configurable, and I'll show you the configuration as soon as I'm done. And you get an output. So we'll do feather, why not? And we'll do half a stack of them. And it is stack specific, so don't put in the wrong stack size, or you're going to find yourself losing a book and quill, simply because these are pretty basic mechanics it's using here. So this takes 700 ticks, which is 3.5 times longer than a furnace. I do kind of apologize for that, but at the same time I don't. It's not configurable, and like I said, this didn't cost me any XP to make this book, and so I kind of feel like because of that it's relatively fair for it to be lengthy, considering it did not cost experience to create. And when it's done, you'll know, because it'll make a little jingle for you. And there's our Feather Falling 1 book. It does make only level 1 books. It does not make any final level books. As you can see, we do have Fire Aspect. All of these are level 1. And it does have OR dictionary support. As you can see, we've got... It doesn't look as great in JEI. I haven't really figured out a good way of implementing that yet in a nice, clean, rotating item stack manner. But you can see that all of these logs have been implemented just fine. So, that basically covers it for the items. There's one more here that isn't done, so I'm not even going to cover it. It's an Atmos manipulator. It's a work in progress. Create rain or sun. Doesn't actually work, by the way. Isn't actually sending any weather packets anywhere, so for the time being, it's completely pointless. What you just saw was just a client-side visual effect. But as I've already discussed, there is the Everfull bucket, but there's also the Insatiable bucket, which is already kind of done by Botania, but for the time, or at the time, it was not. So there you go. It was just some manner of sucking up pretty much any fluid, and I haven't... Hello? Well, I seem to have broken my world a little bit here. Ah, there we go. Let me reload this world real quick, sorry. Must have been because of the Atmos manipulator, to be honest. It's, that one's not going to be fun to finish, but it definitely does need to be done. So, I haven't tested, we'll find out real quick if this works on... Yeah, so there you go. It even works on mod fluids if you wanted to do work with other fluid buckets, I suppose. So, there's that. As far as Criss Cross goes, I add a few other things still. There's the Infinite Apple. So, I'm having a relatively hard time showing you here. But if I was not hungry, or if I was hungry rather, and I wish I had made a debug item, but I didn't. Let me grab some poison ivy. I know how to make this work. Actually, hang on. There should be one for hunger. Sorry, I'm just looking to see. There we go. So you'll see my hunger goes down, and if I take a look at the mod ID, and here's a recipe for the infinite apple. It is going to cost you 8 notch apples and another star, but as you see my hunger is decreasing. As soon as I get this apple, it's full. And it'll stay full forever, always. Just keep it in your inventory, somewhere in your inventory, and as long as it's in your inventory, you will stay constantly full. So, you know, just one of those things that I added. The pouch is another item that I actually am kind of quite fond of. It turned out a lot better than I was expecting. So if I take a look at some blue dye here, and we've got the pouch. The pouch is an inventory's worth of items, or a chest's worth of items. I'll implement some inventory tweaks compatibility with it later, don't worry. But the pouch, you can see it's got items. If I take the items, or take the pouch, I can actually, or should be able to dye it. Actually, I wonder. That might not be registered. That is. There we go. I was going to say, why didn't that work? Natura's, that was a work in progress item from Natura, and it's not actually implemented into the ore dictionary yet. But you can see I can dye these items, and these are actually using the same dyeing mechanics as leather. So if I wanted to take like red, rose red, or we'll even use floral red powder because that's an ore dictionary. I want to show you guys that ore dictionary works essentially. And then you can see it turned purple. And it kept its items, by the way. It does keep its items all the time. And just like in vanilla, if you take a cauldron, fill it up with water, you can discolor the pouch, and it'll still keep its items. So the pouch items are pretty consistent, or persistent, rather. So, I'm trying to think of what else I should really show here at this point, because the last item here is pretty dumb, actually. Like, it's no longer necessary now that Tinker's Construct is out again. It is a mantle smasher, and you can see it's essentially just the hammer from Tinker's, but I just wanted something to allow you to do it in non-Tinker's environments while we were waiting for Boney to finish his marvelous update. So the Mark I is relatively expensive, but is not terribly expensive, I guess. And so you can see it's just a few blocks of emerald, a few blocks of iron, and a diamond pickaxe. And the Mantle Smasher Mark II is a Mark I, has to be undamaged, with a nether star, some diamond blocks, and some gold blocks. So the upside of the Mantle Smasher Mark II is it does not have a durability bar. But it also cannot be enchanted in an enchantment table. And if you sneak while you break, then it just does normal breaking. So, you know, it's one of those things that I just added because I could, essentially, and probably will be gotten rid of here in a little while, maybe. I'm not sure. So, for the most part, that is Criss Cross. I'm personally pretty happy with how it has turned out. I think it is a good little holdover for between now and whenever tech mods like IC2, or at least IC2 Classic, or some other mods end up coming around for 1.8.9, because unfortunately I know a lot of them have decided that they are not going to. So, I hope you guys learned a little bit something about the mod today, and maybe decide to give it a try. Thanks for watching, and I will keep you guys posted on any new stuff.